The Ukrainian president has thanked the people of Ireland for their steadfast support. In an address to the joint houses of the Oireachtas, Volodymyr Zelensky asked Ireland to stay the course. In the face of war fatigue, he said the Irish voice had not turned quieter. He stressed the importance of sanctions, the mobilisation of frozen Russian assets and accountability, urging the Oireachtas to support the creation of a tribunal to address Russian aggression, including the kidnapping of Ukrainian children.
As his country navigates war and challenging diplomatic constraints amid the latest attempt to broker peace, the Ukrainian president began this visit, which was played out under a global spotlight, with a courtesy call to President Connolly. There, his written words expressed gratitude for Ireland's steadfast support. Then it was on to government buildings, where he was afforded the full trappings that come with an official visit. Here he offered a frank assessment of those talks between the US and Russia that could define his country's future.
We are waiting for the results in America-Russia negotiations, today's results, and I will react according to the results. If I feel that we can count on real, specific dialogue, not just words, with some result, we will meet.
From the Taoiseach, there was a promise that Ireland would continue to back Ukraine for as long as it takes in order to ensure that the Russian president does not win.
The people of Ukraine deserve to be safe in their own homes. Their children deserve to sleep safely in their own beds. And today I am pleased to announce that we will provide a further 100 million in funding for non-lethal military assistance and another €25 million to help Ukraine support its energy system.
There followed a rare honour as President Zelensky became one of the very few to address a joint sitting of the Houses of the Oireachtas for the second time. On this occasion, he would do so in person. The Ukrainian president told the packed chamber that peace was within grasp, if it was a just one, that encompassed accountability and avoided humiliation.
Today, Ukraine is closer to peace than ever before, and there is a real chance. But we must seize this chance fully, the whole world, not just one of another powerful country. Ukraine wants peace.
At the conclusion of his words, there was almost universal applause, but not quite, as the people before Prophet TDs did not clap. Then Volodymyr Zelensky left this room, hoping that his country is edging towards peace.
All the best. Thank you.
But equally mindful that it cannot be a peace at any cost. Micheál Lahan, RTE News, Leinster House.
Well, our political correspondent Paul Cunningham is standing by for us now. Paul, real warmth in the chamber there, and much made of this shared friendship, history, values, and this notion of understanding the price of freedom.
There was an awful lot of parallels made today, Sharon, by President Zelensky in relation to Ireland. And as you say, there was an awful lot of warmth, whether it was at the Oireachtas, whether it was at government buildings, whether it was here at Leinster House, or indeed over at the Department of Foreign Affairs later. And he drew some comparisons, saying that Ireland and Ukraine had similarities in that they had to fight for centuries to be who they wanted to be, to remain themselves. And he said that while there had been some fatigue recognised in other countries over this illegal war by Russia against Ukraine, he'd never felt that when it came to Ireland. And he talked about how Ireland had managed to sort of work closely. So one of the things was had a global attitude. St. Patrick's Day was known all around the world, and that was something that Ukraine was trying to emulate. It wanted to create this alliance, or a wall, he described it, to stand with Ukraine, which would be based on certain values. And that was something that Ireland was particularly good at. It had values as a diaspora, it had values at the United Nations as well. And he also, with a bit of edge, said he believed that Europe would also stand with Ukraine because it couldn't run away from those values either. To a certain extent, it was summed up by his last sentence, where he was saying, don't forget about us, continue to stand with Ukraine. And I think that was a plea, ultimately. He was hoping that Ireland will continue to to afford help and assistance to the Ukrainians who came here over the past 4 years as a result of war, that they will continue to fight at the European Union to ensure that Ukraine is able to join as quickly as possible, that they will continue possibly by the end of this year to ensure that the European Council will ensure that Russian assets based in Europe are given to Ukraine so they can rebuild their country. And beyond that, whatever peace deal lands, that Ireland, Europe will stand with Ukraine to ensure that security guarantees are given so there isn't an outbreak of war again.
Paul Cunningham, thank you. Well, this official visit takes place during a pivotal week in global diplomacy. While President Zelensky was on his feet in the Dáil, US envoy Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner were scoping out the prospects of a peace deal in Moscow with President Putin. Earlier, the Russian president accused European leaders of trying to sabotage any deal, adding if Europe wanted to start a war, Moscow was ready.
The US delegation arrived in a chilly Moscow, hoping the reception from the Russian leader would be warmer. But before the meeting had even begun, Vladimir Putin sounded both annoyed and adamant, accusing Europe of trying to thwart a peace deal. The Russian president said European countries had been sidelined in the current talks and were not on the side of peace. If Europe chooses to start a war with Russia, Mr. Putin added, then Russia is ready. His comments drew little surprise from his Ukrainian counterpart in Dublin this evening.
He really doesn't want to finish this war, because he didn't get all the goals, what he wanted at the very beginning of this aggression. He wanted to destroy us totally, our freedom, our people. But he really been very surprised. Everybody understands who knows him and who doesn't.
Though President Putin may now be unhappy with the deal that's on the table, he met this evening with the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the US President's son-in-law Jared Kushner for discussions about a peace proposal that Donald Trump tonight conceded may be difficult to agree.
As you know, we have a problem with a war that our people are trying to settle now with Russia and Ukraine, but we're trying to get that settled. I've settled 8 wars. This would be the 9th, and our people are over in Russia right now to see if we can get it settled. Not an easy situation, let me tell you. What a mess.
Do you hope for a breakthrough, or is it not?
I don't know.
Clarity on that is no closer tonight as talks continue. Fiona Mitchell, RTE News.
Let's have a quick word now with Sean Whelan, our Washington correspondent. Sean, in contrast with that show of friendship and solidarity in Dublin, quite menacing remarks coming out of the Kremlin.
Yeah, and to be expected as well. Putin is trying to detach the Europeans from the Ukrainians and from the Americans as well, indeed, because he does see them, and perhaps rightly, as trying to water down the proposals that he had submitted to the Trump administration, which they initially appeared to be running with until they faced a lot of pushback internally here in America, but also most vehemently and most publicly from the Europeans and the Ukrainians. And unless you have everybody coming to the table, there really isn't going to be a peace deal. The threat about having a war with Europe, well, Europe has no intention of starting a war with Russia. But then, you know, you look at the Russians' own performance over 4.5 years, well, almost 4 years. They haven't overrun 40 million Ukrainians. So how are they going to do it as swiftly as President Putin says they would against 450 million Europeans with 10 times more money to fight a war with? It is rhetoric, but it is the kind of nasty rhetoric that lends to his reputation, and also suggests that he is perhaps himself not too unhappy about this war continuing, because he seems to be grinding it out and winning small but significant gains on the battlefield, and that puts him in a greater advantage the longer this war goes on. Sharon?
Sean Whelan in Washington, thank you.